What is up, y'all? I'm Jammin' Outdoors, and this is my channel. Welcome back, y'all. Today I actually want to show y'all another project that I just purchased. And before y'all say anything, it's not another bike. I already got too many of those. My wife and I were talking about, after we got hit with Hurricane Ian, that we really need a reliable generator just in case the power goes out. And funny enough, we're actually being hit with Hurricane Nicole right now. It's not that bad, nowhere near as bad as Ian, but it kind of made us realize we need something to power the house just in case. Well, I brought up the idea of buying a generator welder because it's a 2-in-1. I can weld elsewhere. I also can use it for powering the house if I need to. I mean, it just makes sense. Now, they are a lot more expensive than a regular generator. But, funny enough, my boss has accumulated a lot of welders over the past few years because when he buys a new truck, he puts a new welder on it. And then when he retires the old trucks, he takes the welders off and sells the truck. So he's got a few thrown in storage, and I talked to him, and he was willing to sell one. So let's go look at it in the back of the truck. And the storm isn't too bad. It's mainly just a bunch of rain. But last night, before the storm, I pulled out a ton of gasoline out of the welder. But it is a Miller Bobcat. It's got a Subaru engine, which unfortunately, I've heard it's not the most reliable thing. The biggest issue with it right now is the dead battery. I don't know how many hours are on it. I know it does turn over. Oh, well, there goes the pull cord. Ha. But it did turn over the other day, so I'll probably have to buy another pull cord for it. This was just old, worn out. But it's pretty nice. I mean, overall, it's in pretty decent condition. I'm going to clean it up really nicely, do a bunch of maintenance on it, and then we'll go from there. There we go. Carburetor looks rough. So I don't even know how many hours are on this thing because the battery is completely dead. So I'm actually going to use Morgan's old car battery that has a little bit of juice left, use some jumper cables and hook it directly to the Wildcat's battery to see if I can get some readings off the hour meter and maybe even see if it turns over. Yep, that's some juice. Let's see if we get anything. Alright, so I guess connection's not good. Let's see about now. Come on, man! So I got those on. Nothing. I switched it to the on position, see if that works. So it runs. Just got to figure out why the battery power is not getting to the front. And before y'all say anything, I already checked the oil, so the oil was good. On top of here, there's one of the fuel lines. It goes to the carburetor, so I'm going to pull that off and actually spray carb cleaner in it until I see it come out the bottom of here and let it sit in the carb. So on the front of the machine you have the starter and stuff. When you turn that on, when it's connected to the battery, the hour meter should pop on, and obviously when you do that, it should start it. Well, nothing's happening, and it's connected to the battery, and this has 13 volts, so it should start it no problem. So I'm having to try to back trace all the wires, and so as I'm looking at right here, it comes in, mounts to like a relay on the starter. So right there, and the only wires attached to that are a red and a green. Well, the green comes back towards the motor. So that can't be it. The only one that goes anywhere up there, which as you can see here, these wires come underneath the generator, and it turns into a bunch of white wires that come up and distribute everywhere. Well, you trace that red wire back, it looks like there's like a fuse on it, an inline fuse. So you spin that off. Ooh, blammo. That's our problem. It's a rusted, crappy fuse. So I am gonna buy another one, and then I should have power up front. So I just got back, got some fuses, but I did not get a battery because it's underneath the engine, and I have to take apart a lot of metal to be able to get it out. But here is a new 10 amp fuse. So I'm going to put it back in this inline fuse container. Moment of truth. Heck yeah, 566 hours. That's a decent amount of hours. It's not a little, but it's not a lot. Oh yeah, nice. Heck yes. All we gotta do is put some fuel in the tank, maybe some fuel treatment, and hopefully there's not a whole lot of sediment in the tank. And then if it doesn't run in that case, I'll probably have to clean the carburetor, but it should run. So now the engine turns over by hitting the starter switch. Before I put fuel in it and try to see if it runs, I am actually gonna do a quick cylinder inspection and look inside of it. Really need to swap out the spark plug, but I do not have another one right now. Gonna plug it in. I'm gonna spin the motor over. There's a little oil on the wall, so we're good in terms of lubrication. There's a little bit of scuff marks on the cylinder walls right there, but honestly, I can still see really good cross-hatching. The top of the piston looks pretty good. Very minimal carbon buildup. It looks pretty great. Stupid cans. Can't freaking pour without spilling gasoline everywhere. Put some seafoam in there. I got back from the store and I just purchased a new spark plug. So I'm gonna put it in there, and then I'll probably swap out the oil for fresh oil, because why not? I'd like to start out fresh. This thing takes 1030, and I cannot find an oil filter on it. It doesn't look like it was manufactured with one, so I'm just gonna change the oil and be done with it. And then maybe I'll get to the carburetor, start threading it in. So now let's drain the oil. So you have the drain right here. All you have to do is pull and twist like that, and it'll start pouring out. It's pretty easy. This mechanism, I'm gonna twist left and pull out. Going to stick. I believe it took like 1.26 quarts, I believe. Yep. Now I'm going to pull out so I can see if it runs. Now let's see if she runs. So it was running just on starter fluid that I put inside the carburetor. So I may have to pull the carburetor apart because I don't think any fuel is getting from the fuel tank up into the carb. But it was running, so that's good news. So now I'm going to pull the carburetor off. One bolt on top, I think. Holds this whole housing on. This assembly comes off. This gas line looks like it's dry rotting pretty bad, so I'm going to replace that for sure. Look how disgusting that carburetor looks. I think this is just really stuck onto it. Yeah, that's just really stuck onto it. So I put some paper towels in the hole because this thing is nasty and there's a bunch of gaskets that came off that got ripped. So I definitely gonna have to buy all those. So it's probably gonna be a week or two before I put this thing back on. If I tear it down and it looks like it's salvageable, I'm probably gonna get an ultrasonic cleaner because I do have multiple bikes that could have their carbs cleaned, you know. Plus I work with other carbureted bikes all the time, so it'd be nice to have that tool. So I ended up going with a Chinese carburetor. I just didn't want to bother with trying to rebuild the stock carburetor because I'd had to get a rebuild kit because there were some gaskets that tore inside of it, and the OEM are kind of expensive, so I just decided to try out the $25 Chinese one. So there actually is a difference between these carbs. This choke actually connects to a cable up here and it's spring loaded. This one is not. So I gotta remove this one, see if I can replace it with this one. If not, this carb's not gonna work. So you can actually pull this part of the choke out and then you can hopefully remove this one and it hopefully will fit. Just a Phillips or a flathead, and this one is actually spring loaded. Pull this off, pull that out. And there's actually a seal right there, and there's not a seal on there. That's OEM versus Chinese. Looks like this might actually work. Wow, that actually worked. So let me put the other screw in. All right, so I got the old choke on the new carb. So I'm actually going to stall it now. Hopefully that works. You got this piece up top, controls throttle. This component up. I guess that's kind of rubber, so that might seal on that. So I might not need a gasket there. I think this is all rigged up how it should be, so I'm going to put the airbox on and tighten her up. Now let's see if it runs with the new carburetor. it generating power. So I just made some leads. I had the ground clamp and the electrode holder laying around, and so I put it on this thick gauge cable, and so we're good to go. Good to test it out. So I got it running this morning, and it was kind of hard to start, but I was able to get it to where it's running again like it was last night, and now it's time to test to see if it welds. News. Started spraying everything with degreaser. Try to miss important electrical connections, but everything like the gas tank, stuff like that for sure. So I actually put some PB Blaster on the header bolts themselves. I'm hoping that soaks in and helps break that rust up, because I'm about to hit it with the Bolt Breaker 3000. This is like 800 foot-pounds of breakaway force. Let's see if we break them loose or we snap the bolts off. Let's put it in forward. Oh yeah. Now I'm gonna do the other one. Forward. Dropping rust everywhere. This thing is bad. So I'm about to knock all this rust off so I can get bare metal, so hopefully I can get a good coating of high temp paint on it, so it hopefully prevents this in the future. And I'm gonna try to use this bad boy. Hopefully it's not too aggressive. Only the real ones know what this is. I've been woken up many a times in the middle of the night by this thing when I worked in the oil and gas industry offshore. But it's called a needle gun. It's got a bunch of tungsten rods that alternate and beat up rust. Kind of lopsided, but so of course I blew a hole in it, so I'm gonna probably have to order a new 90 exhaust pipe, which sucks. So I'm going to PB blast it and then use my impact to remove it, hopefully paint the rest of it, and then just bolt that on later. I'm actually sanding down each side of these cuts to make them nice and smooth so I can weld all these together. So I got that curvature, that's the 90 I want to make. Start welding off this puppy. And then I also got a super sharp tungsten. I just sharpened it up and it looks pretty good. I'm gonna wipe down all the parts with acetone, also wipe down my filler rod, and then I'm gonna start tacking these all together. So I got some high temp paint and I'm about to spray it up. So I got the exhaust tip welded on and everything painted with some high temp paint. So I'm ready to throw it on. So before I assemble everything, I wanted to swap the battery out because it was beyond dead, and it actually wasn't that hard to get it out. You just had 4 bolts on bottom of that back plate and then 4 bolts on top, which I already took out because this top section was off. So I'm gonna swap it out in a few minutes, and then I also have to replace the fuel lines before I can put everything back together because these are crusty. And I went to the auto parts stores, Ace Hardware, Tractor Supply to try to find some lines, and I ended up finding them at Tractor Supply with the right inner diameter, but the outer diameter is actually larger, so these clips won't fit on. So I'm gonna have to try to find like hose clamps or something like that, which is pretty firm on there. I mean, I have to really tug and it still won't come off. So in reality, it's probably fine without anything on it, but it's probably better to put even a zip tie on there probably than just leaving it without something. But I'm gonna go ahead and swap out all the lines. So it's got fresh lines. It should be good for years to come. And one thing that I figured out is this tip that I welded on, permanently welded on, was not going to work because it won't fit through there, because this lift point has to go in that spot and you can't really like work this in. It's just, so I had to cut that off, which unfortunately it looked kind of crappy, but I think I might just ended up chopping it off and doing a tractor flap. So we'll see. I ordered that. I'm probably just going to lop it right here and then repaint the surfaces that got damaged, and then just put that tractor flap on when I get it and just be done with it. Which I hate that I put that much effort into building this, which it looks pretty decent, but or did look decent. But anyway, it is what it is. The whole thing is painted, and so it shouldn't rust. But I'm going to throw those fuel lines on. I'm going to swap the battery out, and I'm gonna put everything back together, and I'm gonna clean it up really nicely, and then let it run for a little while, and hopefully it should be spot on. So I got the line from the carburetor to the pump done with zip ties. It's really tight. Then I got the line that goes from the crankcase to the pump, which is probably the vacuum line. Also, I got the first leg from the pump to the tank done with the protection on it and zip tied to the positive cable like it was. I'm about to put a fuel filter on there and then connect another piece of line that goes to the tank. Like this sticks into the tank, and it was previously connected into obviously the old hose. I'm going to put the new hose on there, clamp it really hard, and then shove this back in the tank. Then I'll be done with the fuel hoses. So this engine cover I think is plastic. So I am actually going to try to use a heat gun instead of painting it to see if I can bring back the nice black color instead of this faded gray color. It's not pristine, but it definitely brought the black color back instead of looking the faded gray. It looks amazing. Obviously there's still water on it, so it'll obviously dull down once it dries off, but still everything cleaned up pretty nicely. And I'm super happy with the way it looks right now. So I've actually been done with this welder for a few months now. I'm just getting around to making this video, but I pulled it out a few times and ran it. It's been sitting in the barn just to make sure obviously the carburetor doesn't get gunked up again. So I didn't actually end up getting a battery because I didn't want it to sit in the barn, you know, not being used. So I'm just gonna wait till closer to a date. I'm gonna use this more frequently and I'll purchase a battery then. I put the tractor flap on, it works well. Hate that I spent so much time on making that 90, but it is what it is. This works well and it's, you know, it should be good. Also, the cleanliness, you know, it was shiny when I washed it, but of course it dried off and dulled back down. But again, it doesn't look awful. I also, when I was detailing it, used the back to black stuff that we use on our black plastics for our cars, and it made the edge look pretty good. This is kind of going back to dull gray already, but it still looks better than it was. And the whole face looks amazing. There's a small crack there, but everything else looks great. I mean, this is a sticker. It's like a really thick sticker, and it looks great. These were a nice dark gray, but now they're back to, you know, the dull gray. But even these covers for the plugs, the back to black did a really good job to make it look, you know, new. It's holding up pretty good. It looks great. I'm storing it inside, so it should stay pretty similar to the same condition, you know, right now. Also, these connectors, I actually had this quick disconnect already, and I don't have another one. These are like 20 bucks a pop. I don't know if I'm going to buy another one or not. I may, just because, you know, to make it, you know, uniform. But I'm actually going to use this to actually power my Yes welder. So I'm pulling this over here so I can plug this in. I'm gonna bring the 7525 over here, hook it up to the MIG function, and we're just gonna do some beads real quick. Nothing crazy, I just wanna see how this powers this thing at full capacity, because that's kind of what this is for, is to be able to stick weld, power the house, and also power my bigger MIG and TIG and stuff, plasma too, separately, you know, away from the house power. So I'm going to get my adapter. Let's see, it's kind of messy. This is what I need for a generator. I bought this off Amazon. It's a 4-prong to a 3-prong. So I just plug it in here. And so now I got the same outlet that I do in my house for my welders. Just gonna bring it over here. Lock the wheel. So let's see if we can get it running by pull starting it. I actually haven't successfully done this yet. I've been using the actual starter function, so let's see. I'm going to click it to run position. I'm actually going to get my jumper cables and go to the terminals because I don't think the pull start's working for some reason. So I may need to lengthen the pull cord that I put in here. Maybe that's why it's not starting, but I got some cables hooked up to my lawnmower. Let's see. It'll idle down until it senses a load, and then it should idle up. I want to max it out, so whenever it cuts on full power, it's max generation. So let's see what happens here. So it's turning on. There we go. It's already on MIG settings, actually. So I'm actually going to bump it up to the max. Let's see, 1/4 inch. We're gonna go all the way up to 1/2 inch steel. So it's 200 amps. Be maxing this puppy out. Let's see if this thing can keep up. I also have to turn on my gas. So it's successfully welded at 200 amps. It seemed like it handled the load pretty good. I mean, it was able to weld with the max capacity of this thing, and I'm sure it will do the same thing with that Everlast. I'm pretty happy with this purchase and this project. It went well. All I got to do is get a battery for it, and it's good. But like I said, I'm going to wait till maybe closer to hurricane season to purchase a battery probably. Or just take the lawnmower battery and put it in here, or just, you know, not even fully put it in there. I mean, hurricane season, I'll just take the battery out of there or out of this thing, or I don't really need a battery in this thing full time. I do need to try to figure out why I can't pull start this thing. I may just need a longer cord, but anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this project as much as I did. It was kind of nice to change it up from the norm, but also it really helps our household just because, like, in the case of emergency, we have power, or I can weld anywhere. I can even just take that welder and just stick weld anywhere I want. And if I want to get more technical, I can take the Yes Welder or the Everlast and weld anywhere as well. But it's just nice to have around. Plus, I'm invested such little into it, which is really nice too. So anyway, if y'all want to see more stuff like this, let me know. And until next time, catch you on the flip side.